What's going on, guys? CaptainJack here. I'm one of the MindCrafters, and this is a tutorial about the most awesome power generation block ever. It is the Draconic Evolution Reactor, and it is amazing. This video is dedicated to all of the haters out there that refuse to build these on their server. This is a server that I have been playing on. The reactor's been running for a long time. It is perfectly safe, and I'm going to set out to prove that fact in the next 30 minutes. I'm also going to set out to prove the fact that you can crank some serious power out of these things and still run them very safely, because we are all about the safety. So get in the edge of your seat, stay poised, and listen up. Alright, so this reactor is extremely endgame and is going to require a ton of very valuable resources. You are going to need a lot of nether stars, like hundreds of them. And if you want to know how to make a really good nether mob farm, you can check out our tutorial video linked in the description below. You're going to need a lot of Wyvern cores to make awakened cores. You're going to need awakened cores and a bunch of other stuff to make reactor stabilizers, which you are going to need 4 of them. You're going to need at least 1 energy injector. You are going to need to kill the Chaos Guardian on the Chaos Island in the end to get, you're going to need 2 Chaos Shards. The Chaos Crystal drops 5 in the end, and you're going to need to make the Chaotic Core and the Draconic Reactor Core out of the Chaos Shards. I'm not really going to talk about how to defeat the Chaos Dragon, but suffice to say, you need a very large backlog of power, probably a whole bunch of capacitors, definitely a bunch of enchanted stuff, and a really awesome bow that shoots really fast and does a whole ton of damage. Next, you want to make sure you're going to have some sort of energy transportation device that can transport a ton of power. These advanced energy transceivers work awesome, or you can use the cryo-stabilized flux duct from Thermodynamics. If you open up your Draconic Evolution information tablet and scroll down to Draconic Reactor, it will give you a whole bunch of information about this reactor, which is semi-helpful. And I will tell you all the recipes, tell you kind of that it's super dangerous and you'll need to regulate things, and that's that. So definitely check this out before you go ahead and build these. You're also going to need 2 flux gates. These will basically regulate the power going in and out of the reactor, and they are an absolute requirement to make this reactor. The input is going to be the purple, the output is going to be the orange, and these were basically designed to work with these redstone comparators, or some sort of ComputerCraft program or other sort of programming thing that can regulate the reactor. For this tutorial, we are going to be using ComputerCraft and not these, because ComputerCraft, in my opinion, is way safer. There are other methods of regulating these reactors. I am just going to show you one of the methods. It's a really good ComputerCraft program that I found to be perfectly stable and also really awesome. In order to set up the reactor, you are going to need to place your 4 stabilizers a minimum of 4 blocks away and a maximum of 8 blocks away from the center of the Draconic Reactor core, just like this. This example is 7 blocks away. In order to move energy in and out of this reactor, in this tutorial, I am going to be using mainly tesseracts, but again, you can also use the power transportation methods I have already explained. The ComputerCraft program, whose link is in the description, basically has a requirement for a certain way that this needs to be set up, and you can just kind of pause your screen right here if you want to check out how I did it and how the tutorial says that you need to do it. You need a advanced computer right here with its back facing the reactor stabilizer. You need power coming out of here and into the flux gate, and then finally some sort of way to get power back into your core. So this thing is going back to the core. So the power is coming out of the stabilizer, and I'll talk about this more in a second, and back to the core. The other thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to set up power input. So this is energy coming into this tesseract, out of this flux gate, and into the core. And in this example, I've actually used the advanced energy transceivers. In order to set up your program properly, you are going to need to connect a wired modem. Make sure you right-click it to connect it, and have another wired modem connected down here to this flux gate, so the bottom of this computer, this flux gate, and then connect it to an advanced monitor. And the advanced monitor has to be in a 3x3. You can make it bigger, but the program will just fit on the 3x3 monitor there. And make sure you activate that monitor on the bottom by right-clicking with an empty hand. The energy injector, seen here, can be placed on the top or bottom, or this reactor can actually be set up in a vertical. So right now I have a horizontal, so all the stabilizers are horizontal. You can actually create the reactor in a vertical fashion, but just make sure that the reactor energy injector is facing towards the core, and this is going to take power from your flux gate, from your tesseract or other power source into here, and it's going to inject power into the reactor. The last and final thing you are going to need is some sort of massive backlog of energy, and the best way to get that is with the Draconic Evolution energy core. If you open up your evolution manual, you can see that down at the bottom you can click on the energy storage multi-block and it will tell you exactly how to build this. I have a tier 6 one shown here. If you've set up the reactor properly, you should be able to right click with an empty hand one of the reactor stabilizers on here, and it will tell you that the status is offline. If you did do something wrong, it will say invalid setup, and you'll have to fix it and find out exactly what's wrong. As a fuel for this reactor, we are going to use awakened draconium blocks, and that's the only thing that you can use, and it's acquired from killing the dragon and doing the ritual with the dragon heart. Now I just want to show you something before we go any further here. If I click on this, you'll see that the reactor is all black inside, and that's actually really important, and I'm going to get to what this is in a little bit more depth in just a second. But what this represents here, all this black, is basically an element known as chaos. It's not actually a tangible resource, but chaos is basically the absence of fuel. So if we check out a reactor that's already been fueled up, you'll notice that there's very little black and a lot of orange inside, and that just means that most of the reactor is made up of the awakened draconium element inside. In order to fuel the reactor, you are going to have to place 8 blocks inside of here, and you can see that it is now converted mostly to draconium. None of the stats here have changed, and you can see that my reactor has finally taken some shape. Alright, so before we can actually start producing power out of the reactor, we do need to charge it first. And what charging means is that we need to get the temperature up to 2000 degrees and the containment field strength to 50%. So when I hit charge here, the containment field is going to fill up very rapidly, the saturation is going to start rising, and the temperature is going to start rising. I can also click stats here to show you all of what's going on here, and there's really not anything going on. Let me check out my ComputerCraft program over here. Actually, the temperature is not rising yet. Ignore what I just said about that. So the saturation is showing me actually what's actually inside the reactor there. And so yeah, this is what's going on. There's the temperature actually. There we go. There we go. All right, so the hotter the temperature, the greater the size of this reactor. So you can see that it is expanding in front of me. It has really cool noise, which I have disabled, and a lot of cool graphics going on here. Okay, and this is actually making a whole ton of RF per tick, okay? Whew. Alright, so let me look inside of here real quick. You can see all this stuff that's happening in here, but we really have no idea what any of it means. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of show you what this whole ComputerCraft program actually does. And what it does is basically allow you to manipulate how much is going in and out of the reactor. So what that means is it's allowing you to manipulate both flux gates on one screen, which is an absolutely invaluable tool. Okay, so we have power coming out of the core, nice graphic here, through this energy pylon into my tesseract. And right now there's really nothing going back into here because we're not producing anything. So right now we are massively draining the system. We're not actually creating any power, we're just taking power from the core. So that's why you want to have a huge backlog of energy. And that's because I actually don't have this right now set to put energy, or well, this one right here. I don't have this one taking anything out of this reactor. So my saturation is going up, my field strength is staying the same. So we want to pull some power out of this reactor. And to do that, you have this nice touch screen here. The 3 arrows will increase by 100,000, the 2, 10,000, and the this arrow here will increase by 1,000. You can see my RF per tick here, my reactor status here, and so yeah, this is really cool. We have the output gate. The input gate is actually in automatic mode right now, and automatic mode is fantastic. I would suggest that we stay in automatic mode all the time. You can click manual mode, and you can actually control how much. I'm sorry for the blinking screen. There's nothing I can do about it. The input gate will show you how much power is actually going into the reactor, and you can regulate that, and that will cause saturation to rise and the field strength. It will manipulate field strength as well. Okay, so what we're going to actually do is we're going to actually pull a couple 100,000 out of the reactor. So the RF per tick is going to slowly rise. The heat is also going to start rising. The reactor is going to expand. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And if we click this stuff in here, we can see that we're at 80,000 RF per tick. The temperature is actually dropping, which means that I can pull more out of this, or I need to pull more out of this. We're going to go back into automatic mode, which is going to, again, manipulate the input. We only control the output, and we're going to crank this to like 400,000, maybe 500, 600,000. And this thing is going to produce an absolutely beast amount of power. You see saturation is going down, containment field is going down, heat is going up, and that's going to start rising faster and faster and faster. Okay, this will get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so, oh, I'm really sorry about that blinking. That's super annoying. All right, so you can make a lot of mistakes with these reactors. Okay, you can pull too much power out and it will blow up. Your containment field can go to 0 and it will blow up. If you ever break one of these reactor stabilizers while the reactor is running, it will blow up. So be really, really, really careful once you have this stuff set up. You can mess this up, and if you do mess it up, it will cause an absolutely ginormous explosion, and that's really bad. We don't want to get above 8,000 degrees, but I'm going to kind of show you that in a minute. What I really wanted to just basically show you is that this program, all as it's doing, you see we're getting a little bit hotter here, all as it's doing is manipulating the 2 flux gates. Literally all that's going on here. So if you have another way of manipulating the flux gates, go ahead, be my guest, and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the remainder of this tutorial explaining exactly what everything means inside of here, because what I found was that in most other tutorials, people gave like a general idea, like, oh, the temperature is this hot and the containment field is this much and this is saturation and it does the thing and fuel conversion is also the thing and these are awesome and they make a lot of power. But this wall here is basically set up to explain everything inside of here so that you can actually know how to manipulate the reactor in order to produce millions, and I mean millions, of RF per tick, okay? This program will actually automatically shut down the reactor if it exceeds 8,000 degrees. So you can run your reactor hotter than 8,000 degrees. It just won't work with this program. So if this encounters a problem, it will take action. And you can see in the bottom here, if you log off and something happens to your reactor, it will say action taken, heat greater than 8,000 degrees. It will shut it off. It will cool down the reactor to 2,000 degrees, and then it will automatically restart the reactor. And this is basically a fail-safe program to make sure that you could run one of these on a server, which I've done, which I'll show you at the end of this video, and I'll also show you how much of a mega crap ton of power that you can actually suck out of these things. And I guarantee it's probably more than any other YouTube video that you have seen so far. Alright, so the next portion of this video is going to be dedicated to basically explaining what is going on, what are these 4 bars, how do you manipulate them, and what kind of an effect do they have on the amount of redstone flux that your reactor is actually making. So right now our generation rate is 500,000 RF per tick. Our containment field is exactly 50%, and the ComputerCraft program is doing that for us. Our core temperature is 6,959 degrees. Now this is going to be really important because this is one of the things that really nobody that has ever done a tutorial that I've seen has discussed the correlation between the core temperature and the generation rate here. Because as you'll see in a little bit, this temperature really is not indicative of how much the reactor is actually putting out. So if you mouse over core temperature, it obviously tells you what the temperature is, containment field, what percentage and how much RF per tick is inside it, or how much redstone flux is inside it. Saturation, you can see that the saturation, okay, I don't know why it keeps switching. The saturation is slowly, oh my goodness, this is annoying. The saturation is slowly increasing. Okay, so 615, 19, 24. Okay, so that is slowly going up. We're at 17.86%, and we have this fuel conversion level. So behind me, I've put these all on a board so that we can see exactly what's going on, and I'll do them one by one. All right, so this is going to seem really basic, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. Take notes if you have to, rewind, pause. This stuff is actually pretty important. So core temperature, that's your bar on the far left. As you extract power, the temperature will increase. So as you take more power out, which means your reactor is generating more, the temperature is going to increase. As the core temperature rises, the power output rises. As the power output rises, the containment field gets drained. Initially, it may seem like the hotter the temperature, the more you'll be producing. However, that is not the case. Ideally, you want to keep the core under 8,000 degrees. Above 8,000, the reactor has to work harder and harder to maintain the containment field, and it can become unstable. At 10,000 degrees, the reactor has to work 10 times harder than it is when it's at 8,000 degrees or less. Overheating the core will cause a rapid drain of the containment field, which will result in a catastrophic meltdown. So you don't want your reactor to get too hot. Containment field strength, which is the middle left bar inside the reactor GUI, the more power that you give it, the more the containment field will increase. The less power you give it, or if you underfeed it, the containment field will get lower and lower and lower. The containment field is what keeps you safe. As long as it's above 0%, your reactor will be safe, but keeping it at a higher level is recommended, basically as a buffer, preferably 50% or greater. If the reactor is active and the containment field dips below 0%, there will be no way to contain the reaction, and the reactor will explode. You can feed the containment field as much power as you want, but it will never reach 100%. Overfeeding it will simply waste power from your core. All right, so just as a quick recap, we are extracting power from our energy storage multi-block over here. It's going through a tesseract, through this flux gate, which is controlled by the ComputerCraft program, and into the reactor energy injector here. And then we are pulling power out through the reactor stabilizer, and it is coming back out through here, through the tesseract, through the flux gate, and into the core. Fuel conversion is simply the rate at which awakened draconium is being converted into chaos, and as a result, over a long period of time, the temperature of the reactor will start to slowly go up. As awakened draconium is burned up as fuel, it is replaced by an element known as chaos. Chaos is not a tangible resource, but can be measured by the remaining fuel in the reactor. If the fuel level is at 90% of capacity, then the reactor has a chaos level of 10%. As the chaos level increases, the reactor will be able to put out more and more power. However, this will become completely unmanageable as the reactor approaches 100% chaos. If all the fuel is consumed, the reactor will start to output an immense amount of power, but will no longer be able to regulate its temperature and will cause a meltdown. To prevent this from happening, simply power down the reactor when it approaches 80 to 90% chaos and refuel it. Fuel lasts a long, long time. Pause that if you want to read it in your own pace. All right, so the right middle column is energy saturation, and this is the most important part of this whole bit. This is the key to maximizing your potential on your reactor. So as the saturation rises, it has an effect on 4 different things. The same is true for when it lowers. So as the saturation goes up, the energy production is reduced. The same token, the fuel consumption is reduced, which makes your reactor more efficient. The temperature is also reduced, which makes it so that you're producing less energy, and the containment field load goes down. So that simply means you need less RF to supply to the containment field. As the saturation lowers, you have an increase in energy production, an increase in fuel consumption, which causes the reactor to be less efficient, an increase in temperature, and an increase or need to feed the containment field load. All right, so this reactor's been running for a while since I've actually started this tutorial, and if you rewind, you'll be able to see that the temperature was actually right around 7,000 degrees. So we are slowly losing temperature, and that is what I'm going to explain next. Basically, I'm going to explain how to maximize the potential of your Draconic reactor, and honestly, I really don't think there is a maximum. So the saturation level was about 18% before. You can see that that is slowly rising. And the only way to continue to bump up the power output of your Draconic reactor is actually going to be very patient and to wait. So what I was doing on my single player, or on my the server I was playing on, was I would every day or twice a day I would increase the reactor in the cycle that I'm about to explain to you right now. So I'll just show you real quick on this block here. I don't know why this blinks so much. You can see that I'm dragging 500,000 RF per tick out of it. So what I can do is I can crank it up to like 700,000 RF per tick, and the heat's going to rise. The saturation is going to drop. The ComputerCraft program is going to maintain the field strength, and that's going to be okay. We don't want to get above 8,000 degrees, otherwise the ComputerCraft program is actually going to shut it down. But we might be able to get really close to that without going over. I'm not really sure. 7, 6. Okay, it's going really quick here. Nope. All right, so I went too far. But what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to pump it up past the amount, and I'm going to show you that this is actually going to shut down the reactor by itself. Okay, so it said stop. There we go. Action taken. I'm really sorry that this is blinking. This doesn't do this. This is the only time it's ever done it for me. Action, the temperature is greater than 1,000, and the reactor is actually in stopping mode. So just in case you actually or accidentally overheat your reactor, it's going to automatically stop, and it's going to save you, so it's really cool. So pay attention for this next part. It's super important. It's a little bit technical, but this is the way that you are going to be able to crank millions out of your Draconic reactor. All right, so when you first start up your reactor, the saturation is extremely low. So there's no power saturation in there. And to the best of my knowledge, saturation increases when your reactor is happy. Okay, so what do I mean by that? When you have your reactor maintaining a field strength of right around 50%, or just maintaining a field strength, no matter where it is really, and you have your generation rate, or your RF per tick coming out of the reactor, when you have met that threshold, depending on whatever you have selected on your flux gate or through your program, then what's going to happen is the temperature is going to start to drop once you've met your power output threshold, and the saturation is going to increase. And these two things happen extremely slowly, okay? So you reach your temperature threshold. So let's say, for instance, you want 500,000 RF per tick out of your reactor. So we select 500,000 out of our output gate. Okay, we have our input gate set. Let's assume we're using the program. Once your power output reaches 500,000, and your reactor is going to get pretty hot at that point, probably over 7,000 degrees, okay? Once it reaches the 500,000 RF per tick threshold, the temperature is going to start to drop, and the energy saturation is going to start to rise. And what actually enables you to pull more power out than what you've already selected out of this reactor is waiting or letting the reactor run for long enough so that the saturation slowly increases. Okay? So the saturation is only going to increase when you've met your power threshold and your field strength is being maintained. And over time, your saturation is going to rise and rise and rise. This happens very, very slowly. Your temperature is going to lower and lower and lower. And you're going to get to the point where you can actually then crank up your output gate up and up and up and higher and higher and higher, so that you can get more and more and more energy out of your reactor. All right, so here we are on my server just to prove to you that I actually have made a reactor, and it has been running for weeks. So there it is, very cool. Let's go and check out how much I'm making, and I will show you a cycle. Boop, 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 boop. The increase cycle, I've let it cool down a little bit. So yes, here's my DE reactor. It is absolutely awesome, and that's that. So if we peek inside, bloop, I'm running 6,500 degrees, 50% containment, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so you saw that we were at about 6,500 degrees, a little bit more, just a minute ago in the other world, and we were putting out 500,000. You can see my fuel conversion level is enormously high, and I actually think this is the limit. If I go too much higher, I might run into a problem. So I posted it was an infinite cycle, but looking at what's going on here, that might not actually be true. So yeah, try it out on your server and let me know, okay? You see my saturation is pretty high. It's at 43%. It's trying to get to 50%. Alrighty then. So Boop. Let's pop up here and see what I'm making. Oh, yes. 2,000 or 2,000, 2 million RF per tick. And you can see that my screen doesn't blink in here. Again, I have no idea why I was doing it on that world. It is very nice. 6,500 degrees. Okay. So I'm just going to crank it to 2,200,000 and all my stats are going to rise. And I'm doing this on a server. So all the haters out there that think these are super dangerous and super unsafe yeah, you can do whatever. I actually I've created so much power that I've drained the tier 7 energy cores like 5 times over again. So I actually have to pump all of my power out into a garbage can just so I can see how far I can push this. So if I show you, right now we're at, let me see, 2.25 million. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and unbind these and I'll show you actually how fast this fills up at 200 or at 2 million RF per tick. There's 200 million, there's 300 million, there's 400 million. Okay, so probably 2 million is more than anybody would ever need in a reactor, but that's whatever. So you can see that my heat is actually starting to level out. So I'm at 7, 8, 9. It's going up pretty slowly. So boop, let's crank it up again. I'm actually kind of afraid now that I'm looking at this because this fuel conversion level is really high. Yeah. I'm still good though. I mean, right? I'm still good. So there, 2.2 million. The heat's going to go up. I can definitely safely probably go up another 100,000. You can see that 99.23. Okay, I've been running this for like 2 weeks. And most people out there just have no experience with time on these reactors. And so I'm glad to provide that for you. Everyone just shuts them off immediately because they're so freaking scared of them, like I already said. And so, yes, something bad will eventually happen to this. But we won't let it get to that point. Okay, so 59, 60, it's going to slowly even off. And then just like you saw in that graph that I just showed you, my energy saturation is going to start to drop again. There is a limit, actually. So, yes, watch out. It's not actually an infinite cycle. And I'm finding this out right now, which is really good that I can provide that information for you. So you're welcome. That fuel conversion rate is massive just because of the amount I'm pulling out of this thing. Let's check this one more time. At 4, almost 5 billion power in a matter of a couple minutes. So yeah, this is the Draconic Evolution Reactor. I hope the video has been very helpful to you. I kind of skimmed over a lot of the like the building of it and everything because most people know how to build these, and that's all they do. They build it, they power up, they blow it up, and they're like, yeah, I'm never building this in my server. Hopefully this video has proved to you and shown that my logic is mostly correct here and that you can run these very safely. You see that it's going up ever so slowly now. It's going to peak, it's going to drop, and I can crank up the generation rate once again. Maybe I'll annotate the video later on when I figure out what actually happens if my fuel conversion level rises any higher than this. So that should be really fun. Yeah, this reactor is massively inefficient. So I'm burning through awakened draconium at an epic clip, I guess. To refuel the reactor, like I said before, you don't want it to reach 80 to 90% fuel conversion. So to refuel the reactor, you actually have to shut it down. Shut it down. You have to let it cool down. You have to import more fuel. And then you can start this all over again. So I actually think this is approaching the danger zone here that I might actually have to shut this down. But when you shut it down, I actually found that you can go ahead and start it back up again at the same generation rate as you previously had. Not sure how that logic works, but it did work. The whole thing shut down because my energy storage filled up. Okay, that's another bit of information. If you fill your energy storage device, your reactor is going to shut down with this program. And so yeah, that was the thing. That's why I'm trash canning everything. All right. Alright, so I've gone ahead and caused a problem here. BAM! Oh yeah, baby! And that is what happens when you blow up the reactor. Yes, so this is an epic mess. Ow, ow, ow. I was standing right on the precipice of the destruction and madness. Pretty sure this isn't going to be here anymore. And, yes. Oh, that's interesting. That Draconium survived. Whew. Alright, so yeah, you don't want to cause this kind of mess on your server. So, just be careful. Follow the guidelines and rules that I have given to you. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video and it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Also, please subscribe to our channel to get all the latest info and updates and all the videos. We try to make our tutorials extremely comprehensive and include all the information possible. That's why maybe they're a little bit longer than other people's tutorials. But a lot of work went into this tutorial, and now it is blown up. An insane amount of work, actually. I hope my research is a benefit to you, and I hope you keep watching our videos. That's it, guys. So, CaptainJack out, and stay poised.